Asian formations. Welcome, guys, once again to the channel Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we ranked, you guessed it, dinosaurs. And today we're going to be continuing our little series here about prehistoric formations. Well, I say prehistoric, but it's going to be mostly Mesozoic for now. And we're going to a continent, the continent of Asia, which is, very rich in, and not only dinosaurs, but just Mesozoic life in general. And for example, I could make a whole video about only like Chinese formations, for example. Like that country has so much fossil material, it's actually insane. So forgive me, I did have to leave some very famous Chinese formations so I could prioritize trying to keep the diversity of different countries and be a little more diverse. So without further ado, I believe we're going to be starting with the NEMEGT formation. So first we're going to go right ahead with the Asian formations, with that NEMEGT formation, probably one of the most important ones, and probably the one of the best known ones, like I would say to the general public, although formations is a bit weird in the public's eye. They don't really understand it that much, but to us paleo enthusiasts, NEMEGT is like the gold standard for actual formation, since there is a ton to look at. Usually with formations we have a small area where there's a single environment. However, NEMEGT has by being this big, it does have a ton of ecosystems represented, and a lot of, again, fossil material. And NEMEGT back in the day appeared to be much more humid than previously thought. We thought it was more dry, but there was some type of forest covering as well, since we do have fossilized trunks, which is pretty awesome. There was a lot of lakes and wetland depositions, which points towards the fact that there was a huge basin drainage, where probably a lot of animals just went to it and had their thirst satiated. Kind of like that scene in episode 2, Badlands and Prehistoric Planet, where all the animals congregate to drink, and even the Tarbosaurus is like, gotta get my fill. But yes, again, it's cold, much more cold and semi-arid climate was present in the NEMEGT formation. And as for fossils, I mean, choose where you want. There's almost every single dinosaur is very well represented that was alive at the time. Stuff that is not dinosaurs, tons of fishes, turtle fossils, and birds. And there's even an unnamed Darkid here, which does show up as well in Prehistoric Planet. Crocs like Paralligator, which it's not a croc, but alligator. As for ankylosaurs, you got like Dioplosaurus, Tarkia, little Cyhania as well. Barsboldia. As for Hadrosaurs, Saurolophus as well. There's one of the two species is from the NEMEGT formation. Nemegtosaurus, makes sense. Opisthosolycodia as well. As for sauropods, you got little critters like, Mononicus and Nemegtonicus. Omalocephaly and Prenocephaly are also tiny. Pachycephalosaurs. As for dromaeosaurs, we got Adasaurus. For weirdos, we got a lot to choose. I mean, you got either Dinochirus or you got Therizinosaurus, which is, two of the most weird dinosaurs to have ever lived. And yes, they are both from the NEMEGT formation. As for, main predators, you got Alloramus and the big boy of all, Tarbosaurus. And yes, as you can see, this was the late Cretaceous, so a lot of different dinosaurs that I haven't mentioned before. But if we go, long story short, it's going to be S tier. The SHAXIMIAO formation. So, I gotta go. It's next heavy hitter, definitely this one. This is a significantly important formation. This is in China, previous one being in Mongolia. But this was during the middle to late Jurassic. And talking about the actual environment back then, there was significant climate fluctuations, which made it so it was shifting between arid and humid conditions. Um, it was very heavily forested, and apparently there was a giant lake. And what is this important? It's apparently this giant lake appears to have swallowed have swallowed all of the remains that we found in this formation, which means all the fossils, all the animals that died around this particular area were being swept away by the elements and into this giant lake, since we have a high concentration of very different animals in the same place. Apparently, there was also a lot of, very high seismic activity, which, might have helped contributed to that. And honestly, I consider this formation to be, the Asian equivalent of kind of like the Morrison Formation, and by extension, Lorinia and Tengaduru from Africa. So as for fossils, I mean, you got fishes is everywhere. There was a big lake, so stuff like Ceratodus and Hybotus, which I always see Hybotus in a lot of these formations, but I mean, Hybotus was again a genus, so there was probably a ton of species. And for small critters, you got Agilisaurus, Xiaosaurus, and you got the Stegosaur parade, basically. Again, as I was saying in my Stegosaur video, if you haven't checked that out, go definitely do that. The fact that Stegosaurus is the most popular Stegosaur, but most Stegosaurs are from Asia, it's kind of funny. And I mean, he's the largest one, so makes sense. But we got Pachanosaurus, Wyangosaurus, Chelingosaurus, Chunkingosaurus, Giganspinosaurus, Tuajingosaurus. Like 8 different species, different animals in here. As for sauropods, I mean, you got the longest, well, you can't see it, but you got stuff like Mamenchisaurus, Omesaurus, and Abrosaurus too. Oh, the cool Shunosaurus as well is in this formation. You got some pliosaur fossils as well, which they might have been swept away to this lake, or they might have come to this lake for some reason. And then you got your predators, your theropods, Gasosaurus, Sichuanosaurus, Sinraptor, and what I consider to be the Allosaurus of this part of the earth, Yangchuanosaurus, the actual goat. So, which I consider to be the tiger of the Cretaceous. If Allosaurus is the lion, Yangchuanosaurus is the tiger. So, SHAXIMIAO, I have a very soft spot. Very soft spots for this formation, and I hate to do it like this early. It's going to be S tier. The BISSEKTY formation. So we're going to be moving on to Uzbekistan, actually. This is during the Turonian, sorry, my bad. During the Turonian. So there was a very interesting period in the history of our Earth, because during this time, especially in this area, or in this part of the Earth, there was a lot of, regression of large bodies of water. So this particular formation is characterized because there was a lot of mix between marine, brackish, freshwater, and terrestrial animal fossils. So you got a ton of them, of different marine and terrestrial, and this suggests that there was this regression of saltwater, a saltwater sea specifically, and that later in time, the coastline eventually started expanding inland, which, again, shows in the increase of fully aquatic species. So during this specific span of time, the ocean was, going up and down, especially in this formation. So we can see that in the fossil record very clearly, as we can see lots of frogs, salamander fossils, a bunch of mammals as well, and lots of sharks, especially lots of sharks, like Cretodus, Hybotus again, Etornithotodus, Metallapulus, and Scapamorhynchus, I believe. Yes, Scapamorhynchus. We got crocs, not exactly crocs, but, alligatoroids and gonifollids, which I did learn about very recently. And there's the famous Ajdarko, which is, the pterosaur that Ajdarkas are named after. Well, Ajdarko is from here. As for dinosaurs, you got Bactrosaurus, Bissektipelta, which is a ankylosaur, and the famous Tyrannoceratops as well. They're very basal ceratopsian. As for the theropods, you got Urbacodon, Jaran, my bad, Jaracurzor, Canichthasia, and the well, not recently, but relatively recently discovered theropod Ulugbesaurus is from this Bissekty formation. So Bissekty, a lot of fossils, not a lot that I'm very excited about, but I do appreciate the actual diversity of the fossils here. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. The Lameta formation. So we're gonna be moving on again. This time another different country. We are in India now. So this specific formation, Lameta, it is heavily associated with the Deccan Traps, which is a giant volcanic area, which is, and this specific formation is generally interpreted as being formed a very semi-arid like climate or environment, but there was also as well a fluvial and lacustrine part of this particular ecosystem, while being still in the early stages of these of the Deccan volcanism. Again, this geological formation, it was particularly given a spotlight in the recent Prehistoric Planet season, where it is pretty nicely portrayed there as being a very volcanic area, basically. Like if you want to see like actual dinosaurs living in crazy environments, that goes pretty hard. But yes, in terms of actual dinosaurs as fossils, many dubious names have been created using very isolated material, and but still several genera are still very well supported. So the most popular, I would say, fossils from this area, which are valid, I would say, are Icysaurus and Gynosaurus. Those are two sauropods which are not absolutely gigantic, but they are like endemic to this area, especially Icysaurus. We got as for theropods, we don't have like a ton, but we do have a lot of Abelisaurs. So you got Indosuchus, Rahilosaurus, and the king Rajasaurus. And we got Nosaurids as well, Nosaurid remains. We got some snakes too, Metsoya and Sanejay. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, Lameta formation, again, this was late Cretaceous, so Maastrichtian of India. Pretty awesome. Again, there is not a ton of like fossil material, so it's not very abundant in that. So that's gonna, I'll say it's. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I hate to do it because it's such a interesting and unique, but the amount of fossils there, it's kind of lacking. So I'm gonna put it in C tier. The JADOCHTA formation. Now, this is a really important and a really famous formation. This is in Mongolia. Well, I can't remember if it's Mongolia. I think it is Mongolia, yes. What am I saying? I got confused for a second. But no, based on the strata, sandstones, and Kalish, I think this is how you pronounce it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments how I'm wrong. Kalish, it is agreed that this arid, very arid paleo environment, comprising of sand dunes and a very warm and very semi-arid climate, with high wind activity and with the presence of very short-lived bodies of water, contributed largely and very heavily in the fossilization process of various numerous different animals, like a lot. And this is again because of this specific environment, which lends to the process of fossilization very well. Again, this is kind of like NEMEGT, huge area for a bunch of different fossils. I mean, crocs, you got Gobisuchus, Shamusuchus, got tons of lizard fossils. In a desert area, you would find a lot of reptiles and a lot of multi-tuberculate mammals. But again, we're here for the dinosaurs. I mean, you got Minotaurosaurus and Pinagosaurus for ankylosaurs. And one of the cool things is that in this part of the world, and at this time, ceratopsians were not the big boys, but the small guys, which are, very strange and still very interesting, like Bagaceratops, Protoceratops, the goat, and Udanoceratops, the other goat. We got Alvarezsaurs like Shibuya and Cole, and some pretty interesting dromaeosaurs. Again, Huscaraptor and Mahakala are, these, very waterfowl looking dromaeosaurs. Got Sagan and the boys, the goat, again, Velociraptor. And I keep saying the goat. Sorry about that. And we got some other different theropods like Abimimus, Oviraptorosaurus, Citipati, Han, and, I'm going to say it. Another one of the goats, Oviraptor. I'm sorry. I'll stop. Other creatures, Sarnithoides, Gobivenator, Byranosaurus, I believe. Yes. Yeah. And Iapirornithomimus. So a lot of different dinosaurs here. Specifically theropods, small theropods to be more precise, are what characterize this area and, make it one of the coolest ones. Not the coolest one, or I don't think it's not quite an S tier, but I am going to put it in a comfortable A tier. The Lufeng Formation. Now, you might be thinking, the what? Well, yes, I am. Again, I was trying to stay as diverse as possible. So we're going to China, but we are going back in time to the early Jurassic. Like early Jurassic, this was, again, in Yunnan, and it represents, again, early Jurassic sediments, which at the moment was, a very dynamic landscape with, rivers and lakes and a relatively tropical but still arid savanna climate. So think of it as, kind of like the African savanna, but a little much more, I wouldn't say not as dry, but definitely the same amount of, aridness to it. And was, again, abundant in early dinosaurs. We're in early Jurassic. And one of the coolest things is the richness of some of the certain type of dinosaur, which are, partake in this particular group is Jiangxianosaurus, Lishulong, Yijusaurus, Shangshulong, and Lufengsaurus. I believe I butchered some of those, but I'm sorry. But these have all something in common, and is that they're all sauropodomorphs. Pretty awesome. This is, I would say, the richest formation that has been, heavily associated with, the birth of sauropodomorphs. And you can see they are awesome. Sauropodomorphs are some of the coolest non-standard dinosaurs, or not famous dinosaurs. I don't know why they are not much more popular, but I get it. Sauropods, you don't want them to be huge and building sized, but these guys are awesome as well. Other things in the formation, for example, are some different early theropods like Pangoraptor, Echinosaurus, and Cenosaurus, which is, very similar to Dilophosaurus back in North America. We got Cynodon fossils and some different crocodile-like creatures like Strigosuchus, Pianosuchus, Microchampsa, and Platyognathus. So, Lufengsaurus. Is it my favorite formation? Definitely not. However, I do appreciate it for how important it is. And, a side of the world, or a side of in a picture into a time that we don't see very much represented. So I'm gonna put Lufengsaurus, honestly, the top of B tier, the UDURCHUKAN formation. So again, we're moving to another country, this time located in the Amur region. Now, where is this? This is far east of Russia. Now, this is very characterized by a wet and dry climate, warm, alluvial, and lacustrine environment, which means there was a lot of lakes. And this particular location was also near to the Okloch, Chukotka. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. My Russian fans, if I have any, let me know in the comments. And the Okloch-Chukotka volcanic belt. And again, this is a very volcanic. There was a lot of volcanic activity in the area. So this particular environment was heavily dominated by large populations of, and specifically, Lambeosaurin hadrosaurs. I don't know why. I couldn't find any any reason why, but we do have a lot of hadrosaurs here, specifically Lambeosaurines. But as for other dinosaurs or other creatures, we got your typical crocs, turtles, mammal fossils. Acaravia is a sauropod from this formation that I did not heard of before. And the thing is, we get a lot of indeterminate dinosaurs as well, like very sparse. Like there's definitely some dromaeosaur material, some ornithomimosaur, troodontid, and even what we know is some sort of albertosaurine, but still don't have enough material. But the actual stars of this formation are the hadrosaurs. You've already heard about a couple of these: Condorosaurus, Kerberosaurus. One of the most popular ones, Amurosaurus, named after the Amur region. But the big boy is Titan. This guy is actually from there, and this particular formation is one that I was in the beginning when I was making the video. I was making the script. I was like, why didn't I think of this formation before? It does actually show up in Prehistoric Planet 2. I'm sorry if you could hear that. But then doing my research, I thought I was going to love this formation, but, the actual amount of animals is actually very, very small. So, I cannot put it, going to the tier list, I don't know if I can put it, in the same level as BISSEKTY or LUFENG. I think in the same point as LAMETA. But I do love Titan more than any dinosaur over there. So I'm going to put it in C tier. The YIXIAN formation. So we're going to be going back to China, specifically during the late Cretaceous. And right out of the gate, this is a great formation in representing the fossil record, since there's a high diversity of plant life, which is very well represented here in the fossil record. And with some further analysis, actually, it was determined that the presence of ferns, cycads, and horsetails indicate that there was a very humid climate, which was further down accentuated by a very harsh dry season. And speaking of, one of the coolest things about this formation is the temperature here only reached about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or for my non-Americans, 10 degrees Celsius, making it significantly colder than once thought, and very unusual for Mesozoic standards. This is due to the high latitude of this particular formation. This is also very well represented in the actual fossil record of the dinosaurs here, since there's a high diversity of feathered dinos, which probably uses feathers for insulation and to try to stay warm. And one of the most popular ones is obviously Eutyrannus, the Tyrannosauroid. We also have small Tyrannosaurus, Beipiaosaurus, and other cool dinosaurs are like Bolong, Dongbei Titan, sauropods, and Psittacosaurus is even from this formation. Other little critters, which are heavily feathered, are May, Sinornithosaurus, Graciliraptor, Tianuraptor, which I do have a little figure here actually. Look, it's a little Tianuraptor. It actually got fossilized like this with its feathers like that, and here it's interpreted as having them always like that, but probably due to the fossilization process. And we got Sinosauropteryx, which is another very cool fossil that has feathers imprinted on it, and the Tyrannosauroid D-Long, which I did talk about in my Tyrannosauroid video. So the YIXIAN formation is it my favorite formation? not quite, but it's definitely up there. So, I mean, I think I'm gonna put it even above DJADOCTA formation. I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. KHUA formation. Now, same as the UDURCHUKAN formation from Russia. I wasn't initially gonna talk about this one. I just kind of stumbled upon it while doing my research, and I was like, bro, I have to talk about this one. It's so unique. Again, uniqueness doesn't mean, you know, it's gonna be high in the tier list, but you know, the uniqueness definitely caught my attention. So this one, similar to the KHUA and the Gres Superiors formations, which are also in the same area. It is, although different in time periods, they were warm and, you know, to slightly cool, semi-arid climates, and there was a lot of meandering river systems along. So there was a large floodplain that was sprinkled by, you know, sand channels and, you know, braided by like rivers. So think of it kind of like a swamp kind of area, not necessarily exactly a swamp, but you know, less trees, for example. You know, and I have to say, this one is quite interesting in terms of the fossil animals. Not a lot of them, but the ones that are there are like, you wouldn't think of it like in the same, in, you know, in this part of the world. So we got lots of pseudoscians, which, you know, makes sense with all this, you know, water-dominated environment. We got Siamotyrannus, the weirdo, Puyangosaurus, which is a sauropod, but we also have Puyangovenator and Vajuraptor. Have you heard of these guys? I don't know, me neither. But one of the coolest things, which, you know, I didn't realize until now, is that this guy was found in this is Thailand, I believe. I think it's Thailand, yes. But the other formation is in Laos, and in this particular formation, there's a dinosaur that is named Siamosaurus, which is a Spinosaurid, which is named after a single tooth. Now, that is dumb. That I'm saying that the paleontologists are dumb. I'm sorry. But there's a reason why we don't name like actual fossils or dinosaurs, genuses, after teeth only, because, you know, that is not very wise. But the Ichthyovenator, well, you would think it's weird because, you know, Spinosaurus in this area of the world, but close to it, and, you know, a little different in time, but, you know, very close, is Ichthyovenator, which does have a lot more material, which makes me think that Siamosaurus could maybe Ichthyovenator, or at least some type of, you know, step on the evolution of Ichthyovenator. So that's pretty cool, in my opinion. I'm not going to put it very high because, you know, I just listed for like 5 dinosaurs, and that's it. So, think Sauquan, think it's going to be at the top of C tier. Yes, top of C tier is, well, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at top of C tier. I'm lying. I'm going to put it top of B tier. I said it. I'm sorry. And that is going to be the tier list, guys. Again, the Asian formations is was quite a lot of formations, honestly. I could do like a whole 2-hour, 3-hour video only on, you know, formations from China. But I'm trying to keep it brief. Maybe not. I'll probably do a part 2 much later, because we still have more continents to go through. But this is it for the Asian formations. Let me know in the comments which is your favorite one, which is your least favorite one, which ones did I forget, because as I said, I definitely did not include a lot of very important ones. I definitely prioritize more diversity in this one. But yes, that's going to be it. Please remember, like the video. It helps a lot. Subscribe. It helps even more. And I'll see you guys in the next video.